Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Legal Debrief. I am your host, AV. Super excited today because we talk about all things law, crime, and debauchery on this channel. But today it has been highly anticipated. I know you guys are super excited for this interview. I'm pumped because I always enjoy talking to fantastic lawyers that are out there fighting for justice every single day. And you guys know we've been covering the YSL case for, quite frankly, a majority of this year, and it recently came to a close. So if y'all can do me a huge favor, start hitting the like button, and I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Ashleigh Merchant. If you guys can give her a proper hello in the chat, say hi, drop Ashleigh in the chat. But Ashleigh, how are you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I know we've been coordinating this for quite some time, but super pumped to be able to finally chat with you on, just some of the year in general. Can you believe it's almost over?
No, I can't. And I was looking through some of the topics and I was like, wow, it's been quite a year.
It really has.
I'm glad a lot of things have resolved so we can be a little freer to talk about things.
Yes. So where to start? So, as we're coming towards the end of the year, 2024, you've had a lot going on. We've started the year with some of the things with the Fulton County DA's office, Michael Roman as a client, Mr. Steele in the middle of the year, and Mr. Arnold. So before we get into what it's like representing them, how do you feel about just those three instances throughout the year?
Well, I mean, I love my clients, and that's one of the reasons I do my job. But you say those three names, and I'm like, I could go have a fabulous meal with all of them and just enjoy. It's definitely been my honor to represent those gentlemen. They're all very good people, and I love representing my clients anyway. But it's definitely been a unique year, I can say.
Yes, absolutely, and all three of those situations are very different. Starting with Mr. Roman at the start of the year, is that situation still kind of ongoing? Because I know that there's a lot to unpack with that one.
It is. I'll give you a quick update. It's still ongoing. We're waiting. Any day, I expect to hear something from the Court of Appeals.
Wow.
We had oral arguments scheduled actually last week, and they were canceled. So, and we don't know why they were canceled. Yeah. So it's all speculation. My, best guess is that they're going to rule without oral arguments. We had asked for them. The state did not ask for them. We did. They gave them to us. And then my best guess is, as they started working through the issues, they said, we don't really have a lot of questions. We know how we're going to rule. So I think we could get a ruling any day.
Wow.
It's kind of interesting because I've never had oral arguments granted and then canceled except for one time before. And that was Brian Steele's case.
Interesting. How ironic.
Yeah. So I thought, since you had asked about that, I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of correlate the two. And so a lot of the guessing, behind the scenes guessing has been based on what happened with Brian's case. In that case, we asked for oral arguments. The state didn't want them. And in all fairness, in that case, the state really just said, hands off, we're not getting involved. So they were actually very gracious about not taking a position in Brian's case. So, they didn't say they disagreed with us. They didn't say they agreed with us. They were just like, we're not involved. And so when we got to the appellate court, they granted us oral arguments and then they didn't take them away. They just rescheduled them. And then they decided before the new oral arguments happened. So it's similar, I think, to what we may see happen in Roman's case.
Okay.
If we get a decision, because they have not rescheduled those oral arguments. So Yeah.
Interesting. And it just reminds me, because right around this time last year is when we started to really dive in a little bit deeper into this case. Like, I think it's sometime in mid-January, we saw the speeches and things like that. And that's where it started to heat up a little bit, January into February. So what needs to be decided, just for those that haven't followed along?
Yeah, January and February were kind of a blur for me. We had a filing deadline in January. And so we had been preparing a motion to disqualify the district attorney's office. And, for those that haven't been following along, there was a relationship between Fonnie Willis and her lead prosecutor, Nathan Wade. And so we had a motion based on that. I'm happy to go into the details as needed. But that basically was a big change in the case. And we filed that early January. So, looking back, and I'm always very introspective at this time of year, changing of the years, like what do I want to see accomplished in the next year? And it's funny, my husband's birthday is January 1st. So I always, I know it's crazy. I know it's like, it's kind of not a great birthday to have, honestly, because everybody's sort of like over everything on January 1st. But I will also say I love a clean start and a fresh new year. And so I always try to like look back on what happened this year that I liked. What do I want to accomplish? Things like that. So I was looking back and I was like, what was I doing this time last year? I was drafting this motion, and I'm actually going to be over the holiday, after Christmas, I'm going to be in the same exact place in Florida that I was last year when we were finalizing this motion. So it's kind of like come full circle.
Wow. Yeah. Full circle. Totally. That is interesting.
Kind of feels that way. And it's one of those places that I like to think, I like to go to Florida. We're very blessed. We have a place in Florida, and it's where I'm from, and it's the beach, and it's just, who can't really get clarity at the beach,
Exactly. Take a little break, go to warmer weather. It's not that far from Georgia. So it's very, very fast to get there.
Yep, it's not. And it's just, where we go, it's really kind of quiet, and, it's just a good place to think. So so just to answer your question, this time last year, we were preparing for that. And then we filed it in January, and then we had hearings in February. So, my January and February were an absolute whirlwind.
Yes. And so what exactly does the Court of Appeals need to decide on? The disqualification?
Yes. Well, the disqualification, but also the legal standard. So in a nutshell, there were a lot of arguments back and forth over if the conduct rose to the level that required a disqualification.
Yes.
If it was a conflict, if it was an actual conflict, if the law requires an actual conflict. And then there were some things that happened after we filed our motions. There were some speeches. Ms. Willis gave a speech. We refer to it as the Martin Luther King speech at the church. She gave a speech at the church. And so we've argued that rises to what's called forensic misconduct, which is kind of a weird word. Forensic just means legal. So it's really forensic misconduct is legal misconduct. I don't know why we call it forensic. But whether or not that rose to that level. And so the appellate court is going to decide essentially if the evidence we put forth was enough to prove that and what the real legal standard is.
Wow. Okay. So very, very important decision coming before the holidays, it sounds like.
It may be. I mean, I think we could have it at any time, really. I mean, it's one of those things, you get it by email, you get opinions by email. Yeah, it's funny. It's like in the appellate world, you get your verdict by email. So you get that you get that notice, and it can come at any time, and you're like, oh my God,
Exactly. And you're like, hey, was not expecting that, but sometimes it's really good news for clients, right?
Yeah, completely. And it's one of those things you don't know when it's coming. So it's like, it's crazy. You just get an email.
Exactly. So that covers the status on what is happening with Mr. Roman, that case as a whole. We'll talk a little bit more about RICO and how this is all kind of connected in a sense. But another big moment for you in the middle of the year was Brian Steele. And it's so funny because Atlanta is so small. Arturo Corso did a interview with me and the lead attorney, and I know that he is a part of Gactyl. So right around this time,
that is a small world. It is.
Right?
It's weird. I mean, this whole year has been one of those things where everything is so interconnected. Like it's a small world in Atlanta.
It totally is. It totally is. So with Mr. Steele, we know that when Judge Glanville was presiding over the case, there were some issues with contempt. And can you tell us a little bit more about that entire issue with Brian, the big win you guys had recently, and what the result was like?
Yeah, let me, just so if some of your viewers didn't follow that particular subset of the case, I'll kind of back up a little. So, they had Judge Glanville for the YSL case first. And Brian Steele was the main, lead attorney on the case. I think most people saw him if they watched the case at all. And there was a lot of pushing back and forth with Judge Glanville and Brian Steele. But, Brian had discovered this ex parte had happened where one of the lead witnesses had a conversation with the prosecutor and with the judge in chambers, and the defense wasn't invited to the party. And, when you talk about the law, there's not a whole lot we're entitled to in the Constitution, but we're always entitled to notice and an opportunity to be heard. So, like I always say, the most basic things whenever I'm teaching young lawyers, you always get notice and an opportunity to be heard. So if those two things are violated, due process is violated. If you have a meeting behind closed doors, you don't have notice and you don't have an opportunity to be heard. You're not part of it. So that immediately for defense lawyers, like ding, 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 ding. What's happening? This isn't, why are you doing this? So Brian, Mr. Steele, of course, is going to think, oh, like, what's going on? Why are you doing this behind closed doors? We don't have star chambers. We're not supposed to do things behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, any reasonable defense lawyer that would sort of trigger something. So he did what he should have done. He brought it up to the judge and said, hey, I want to know. I want this on the record. I should have been there. Tell me what happened. And, we saw Judge Glanville really double down is what it was. It was like, if your kid gets in trouble and, instead of saying, you know what, I'm wrong, they double down and they're like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's really what we saw. And, it was kind of shocking. I think the case at that point, I'll just say personally, knowing everyone involved, I think it's hard. It's hard to be in a trial like that for so long.
Yes.
And I wish everyone had just taken a break. That didn't happen. And Brian Steele went into custody. So for me, it was surreal because I had taken over, like you mentioned, I had taken over in January as the president of the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
Right.
So we have about 2,000 members in Georgia. We're one of the largest defense organizations. But one of the things we offer our members is if you get in trouble, we come and represent you.
There we go.
Yeah. And we call them a strike force. So, and we got, if you watched Brian Steele's motion, I was standing next to a good friend of mine, Alex Susor, and he is one of the chairs of the strike force. And so, but I love Brian. Brian's a good friend of mine. And I was actually I was in the other room doing an interview and my paralegal walked in and she said, Brian Steele's arrested. And I told the person I was talking to, I said, I gotta go. I gotta go. I was like, and I told my paralegal, I was like, get me these people on the phone. Like I'm gonna be in the car driving. Like I need to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, but like get me on the phone. And so it was amazing. It was all of, if you want to name the top 15 lawyers in Atlanta, I'm on the phone with them and they're telling me what to argue. They're texting me what to argue.
That's so cool.
It gives me goosebumps still. It was amazing. And it was just like one of those things like, you just got to go because everybody loves Brian. Yes. And so I got to look like a superstar, but they're the ones telling me what to say. I'm just reading what like Don Samuel is texting me.
Yeah, it was a good show of force for teamwork. And I think for criminal defense attorneys, especially, I chose not to practice after law school, but watching something like that and attorneys across the country were just rooting you guys on for coming together and helping him. Yeah, because it was just outrageous to watch, It
was, and what was really cool, just to kind of set the scene when we were there, like my husband showed up and I didn't even call him, like
it's just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, like he was here. I was like, oh, you came, this is great, So I'm seeing all these great defense lawyers and we're all like, we're not leaving without Brian. And just, everybody putting in their, you need to argue this, or we're not leaving without Brian. It was just like the collective greatness. It was really incredible. I'm not gonna lie.
And his wife runs a practice with him, right? Because I remember reading her name in some of the documents.
Colette. And so, and that weekend was Father's Day. And Brian has 3 kids. You think he's a great lawyer. He's a great dad. He is super dad. Yeah. He practices with his wife. Like, I don't know anybody that doesn't love him. It was crazy.
He seems like the nicest man. He's always polite, even with the judge. He was pointing out inconsistencies, but I can understand his frustration, especially after watching over 170 days of this case. There was a lot of contention there, to say the very least.
Yeah. So I got to come in and look like a superstar for not being a superstar in the situation, listening to everybody else come together, give me the situation, give me the facts. And I just kept playing in my head, we're not leaving without Brian. Like, we're not leaving without Brian. Because I was like, is he going to lock us up? I know.
Imagine that.
No, I know. But I knew that the whole legal community around the state supported Brian. So, that felt a lot better. But as you've probably seen, the Fulton County Jail is a terrifying place to.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Think you might be spending the night. So that is never something you want. But so then, after that, we won that day. The appellate courts swooped right in and gave him a bond immediately, and decided they were going to take this case. They took it. They did it quickly. They did it amazing. They wrote a great opinion, and they said, no, like that's not, you can't do that. He's entitled to due process. He's entitled to a hearing. And it's what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. All we were saying is you're entitled to due process and an opportunity to be heard.
That's right.
I wasn't giving it to him.
Right. Yeah. And then you also pointed out the difference between civil contempt and criminal contempt, right? It seemed like the judge had a little bit of a struggle distinguishing what was happening in the moment. But can you explain that argument a little bit more for people that are not aware?
Yeah, and it's really confusing when you think about it, but I can really break it down simply. So if you've got, if you're trying to compel someone to do something, you want them to testify, you want them to, pay child support, you lock them up until they do it. Okay, so so that is compelling them to do something. If you want to punish them after they did it, you give them a sentence. So what Judge Glanville was trying to do is he was trying to use civil contempt, which is where you can lock someone up until they pay child support. Okay. And I think child support's the easiest way to think about it.
Yeah.
You've got someone who's not paying child support, and the judge is like, dude, you got to pay child support. You're going to go to jail. You're going to jail until you pay child support. So it's called a purge until you do something. You're not like force someone to do something. The criminal aspect of it is punishment. You're not forcing someone to do it. You're punishing them for something they already did. So what Judge Glanville wanted to do was he wanted to use the criminal standards and say, well, you did this, but I'm going to hold you under the civil standard where I can hold you until you talk. And you can't do both. You can't do difference. Yeah, you can't do both. You can't take the process in the criminal court and the punishment from the civil court and like combine them. If you want a civil punishment, you got to use the civil process. If you want a criminal punishment, you got to use the criminal process. So
got it.
That's how he was sort of like merging the two,
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. That is like a comprehensive way to discuss it. Because it's like, when we're watching in the moment, the lag for YouTubers like me is we wait for the documents to come out and then we try to educate and explain as we go. But that was just perfectly said.
Yeah, and it does get confusing.
Yes. And it's distinguished. This is why I really enjoy chatting with attorneys, because you don't get this type of like hands-on experience in law school. I'm actually learning more watching these proceedings. It is incredible.
I have no doubt. I learn something every day. I love having court on TV and YouTube. Like I can be on the treadmill and watching a really good cross-examination,
Yes.
You could, I think it would be really cool to teach like a legal seminar in law school using the YSL trial. I've actually,
oh my God,
wouldn't that
be great?
I know. I talked about doing it for Gactyl. I thought we've actually been talking about doing a whole like 2 or 3 day seminar and just using it and like using the actual real clips, how to cross a snitch, how to cross like, think about it.
Yeah, no, I think that would be fantastic and a great law school experience. Like when I went, one of my favorite experiences was trial team, right? Because it really teaches you to think on your toes. When you do have a hostile witness, how do you rehabilitate? How do you get the information to come out the right way without crossing lines of the federal rules of evidence? So I think that'd be fantastic if you guys did that.
Well, you probably remember in law school, we had, NITA, we have like these examples where you're reading something and you're like, Bob did this and Jimmy did this. And it's different when you're reading that, but think about how amazing it would be to see Woody,
Yes.
And like, instead of reading this fact pattern that seems really made up and fake, you've got a witness that you're watching a YouTube video of, and you're actually talking about how to handle that witness. And that would be cool. I really hope they incorporate that into law school somehow.
That would be great. Like, and just like playing the video, like, okay, the response is, I don't recall. What is your next move? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
With some of those interesting answers. Speaking of the YSL case, and definitely want to chat about Mr. Arnold, because one thing that has come up was plea deals, right? I know you've had a busy fall, particularly with his plea deal and knowing if he was going to testify, if he was not going to testify, and just the provisions and some of the things that you guys needed to adhere to with the plea deals, because we saw some things happen in September with other plea deals. And, after kind of reading some of the letters and correspondences that you've had and shared, was really making sure your client was protected. Can you chat a little bit more about Mr. Arnold's situation and what you guys, how you were preparing for his testimony if he was needed?
Yeah, it was it's a really unique opportunity to be able to see how the state was handling other witnesses, so I could anticipate problems for Mr. Arnold. We don't always have that ability. And I will say I try to trial watch as much as I can, but without TV, it's hard to be a lot of different places.
Yes.
So I had that ability. The other thing, with Mr. Arnold is we had retained his Fifth Amendment privilege. And
I loved that.
Yeah,
I loved that.
Very specific admissions, and we spent a lot of time crafting that and working that deal out, as to what he could honestly testify about and what he didn't know and things like that. So I was really protective of that deal. I will admit, it can be a strength, it can be a weakness. I am very protective of clients. I'm a mom, and I think that comes in a lot with clients. I'm happy to tell a client when they're wrong or they're being stupid, but I'm going to protect them. Nobody else better tell them that. Right.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm really protective. And so for me with Mr. Arnold, there were, as you can imagine with this case, there were so many moving parts. Yeah. And so if you think about all the stuff that you've got to have in your head to protect a client when they take the stand, you're trying to control all of that. And I kept seeing the state not plan and ask for standby counsel. And I'm I can barely maintain all of the information that I need in Mr. Arnold's case to protect him. There is no way I can relay that to someone else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. It's just too much. And there's no reason for it.
It's not enough time.
Right.
There's not enough time to digest everything, and then be prepared for it.
Right. And also a lot of the attorney-client relationship is trust. I know Mr. Arnold, he is a friend of mine. He trusts me, and because he trusts me, I value his trust, and I'm not going to break it. So to me, it was really important to make sure that was protected. And, the state has a right to call the witnesses. So we're going to cooperate. If he's called, I don't dodge subpoenas. My clients don't dodge subpoenas. I will say that. I'm not kidding.
I love it.
I get called because, I do trials and appeals. So I get called a lot to testify at habeases. That just happens. And it's funny because the lawyers will always call and they'll be like, okay, we're going to serve you a subpoena, and I'm like, you do not need to serve me with a subpoena. Email it to me. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to hide from service from a subpoena. I could go on and on about that, but the same with Mr. Arnold. You don't need to go find him. He's my client.
We're here. Exactly. Yes. We're here. We're ready. We're not hiding from it. We're prepared. And I thought that was excellent lawyering and a good example when, we were reading some of these letters, because, in between some of the days or on the breaks, I would pull up the latest that came up and just kind of explain this to the viewers. But we really focused on that Fifth Amendment part, because we kind of compared some other plea deals side by side and noticed that was not included in a majority of them. So I think you're spot on with the protection. We were able to see that in the documents for sure.
Yeah, and I was lucky. Mr. Arnold was willing to walk away. It is really hard when you're in that position. You're in jail and you want to go home. And his plea, it was in December. And I can tell you, jury selection was scheduled to begin in January, and we were negotiating his plea. And I was actually texting with my husband when I was in court negotiating his plea, because we were trying to figure out who was going to handle my cases, because I was about to be in trial for 2 years. And so, I'm like, it's going to be a plea. And then I'm like, nope, it's not going to be a plea, because Mr. Arnold was not budging, he, and I'm one of those people. I can actually equate it to Mr. Roman. If you aren't going to give in, I'm not pushing you, Yeah. Mr. Roman, he was offered reckless conduct misdemeanor. Let me tell you, you're indicted on RICO. It's hard to pass up. It's hard to pass up. And, he's asking me, and I support whatever you want to do.
Clients in the driver's seat.
Yeah. I'm your girl. I'll be there for you whatever you want to do. But, that's hard to pass up.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because it ultimately is their decision. I know within ethics and stuff, we talk about that all the time. Lawyers are here to provide the strategy, provide you what your options are, but it is ultimately up to the client as far as what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the status of his legal situation right now? Is he free and clear now that the case is over? Is he still in jail? What's life like for
Arnold?
him? Yeah.
Mr. Arnold is out. And so he's been out this whole time. He is on probation. So,
Okay.
and it pains me that he is on probation. And it pains me that he is a felon because of this case, because I'll tell you his case, and it's hard when you look at the racketeering to sort of simplify it and figure out, what did Mr. Arnold do, or what is he accused of doing? So I can tell you.
Yeah.
In 2015, you probably saw a video during the trial of Magic City, of a shooting at Magic.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold got shot there. That's
okay. Okay, got it.
2015, he gets shot, and he and one of the other gentlemen go for revenge, essentially. And I mean, he admitted to this, and they did not end up shooting anybody, but shots were fired, things like that. No one was hurt, but he was arrested and charged with that in 2015. He pled guilty to it in 2015. He got first offender. And so in Georgia, if you plea under what's called First Offender Act to probation, to felony probation, when you successfully complete it, you get an order exonerating you. So we have this really cool, I know a lot of states don't have it, but it's really our best mechanism for not becoming a convicted felon. And it's for first offenders. Yeah, it's for people who made a mistake, but it's an isolated incident. And the judge and the state agreed that he got that in 2015. He successfully completed it and was not a convicted felon. So all these years later, that case, he gets indicted for, and the reason they strapped those charges in was because of rap lyrics and social media videos he appeared on. Oh. So no new crimes, only new overt acts. And the overt acts were the lyrics and the social media stuff. So to really break it down, I was going to have to go to trial on a conspiracy charge to conspire to commit a crime that he had admitted he committed.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, and I file a double jeopardy motion, and the judge, Glanville's like, oh, no double jeopardy. And I'm like, so he had to plead guilty and become a convicted felon for that when he had already pled guilty and done first offender for that crime. And the only new stuff was the rap lyrics and the social media posts.
Interesting.
That's insane. That is awful. That law is awful.
It is. And that's the thing, like, because a lot of people, we've been making fun of it. We're kind of like, where's RICO? We're looking for RICO, those sorts of things, because to the layperson that's trying to figure out how all of this connects, it really is because of those overt acts. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. And, I thought I was going to go to trial. So I was trying to figure out how to break this down to a jury. And it is as simple as, for my client, he did the 2015 stuff. He admitted to doing it. Yeah. So the only thing that brought him into this new, realm and this big indictment was the stuff on social media, things he liked, songs he appeared in where they're rapping about it. Like, that's not, just because the rap came out after the crime doesn't mean that the crime was continuing, but their whole theory is that because the conspiracy continued and he conspired to do these acts for the greater good of this, what they thought was a gang,
right?
He can now be charged with that. It's insane to me. And double jeopardy doesn't protect you.
There's so many things to unpack there, right? Yeah. I think it kind of shifts us into the use of lyrics used as evidence, social media posts used as evidence. Are there First Amendment arguments there? We had Doug Weinstein on last week, and he was talking about the RAP Act, which is on the federal level. However, it looks like there still needs to be some reform on the state level of what could come in and what can't. They
tried last year. So that same law that we've seen enacted in like California and New York, it's been enacted in a lot of different states. I think I am not cool. I am random mom from Georgia, but I think Jay-Z, I think he was one of the ones that first started that act, in like New York and California, where they banned the use of rap lyrics. It's going around the country. Yeah. And it was introduced last year in Georgia, did not get support. And one of the big reasons was Funny Willis was very vocal about it. And they're going to try and present it again this year. And let's just hope that now that people see what really happens, maybe it'll get some legwork. But I do think in that case, as unfortunate as it is that we had to go to trial in YSL, the jury made clear that they did not like the use of rap lyrics.
Yeah.
They made clear that was ridiculous. But like you said, I think it implicates First Amendment issues. It's just, it's so easily just not applied appropriately. And,
yes. Yeah.
you know, it's like, I know we give prosecutors a lot of discretion, but sometimes there needs to be curbs on that discretion. And it's just like, you know, why are we just doing it with rap lyrics? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like we needed stickier evidence with some of these crimes, and just the use of a snake and a heart. I mean, just it is just interesting to say the very least. We also had Nicole Westmoreland on a few weeks back, and we were chatting about this one a little bit because it's like, you know, sometimes the attorneys would check out the Law and Crime feed just to see how the general public is feeling, because it's kind of indicative of how a jury could be feeling.
Oh, it is. I tried a couple of years ago. I tried my first case that was on court TV, and that, you know, people really watched all of it. And it's, you got to figure out what to read and what not to read.
Yes,
you know,
for
but
sure.
it can be very helpful to gauge, because you can't ask the jurors, hey, how am I doing? Hey, did you like that witness? So thoughtful court watchers and thoughtful commentary on that is really helpful.
Right.
Really helpful.
It totally can be. It totally can be. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons coming out of the YSL case? So we know that there are issues with the RICO statute, right? The applicability of it. We know that there are issues with rap lyrics used as evidence. But what do you, is there anything we're missing that you think we can include as a big lesson from this case?
I mean, I think that we need to have some restrictions on the use of RICO. I think this is a perfect example of it being overused. You know, there's no real mechanism in criminal law to dismiss a case pretrial. There really isn't. You know, in civil law, you have summary judgment. And so for your viewers, you know, that's basically, you bring a civil lawsuit, you get evidence, you get depositions and stuff, and then the lawyers argue if there's enough evidence to even force everybody to go to trial. We don't have that in criminal. One of the reasons in theory is because we have a grand jury, but the grand jury doesn't hear everything, and they only hear what the prosecution wants. So it's not adversarial, and it's not really, you know, it's not really the mechanism to weed out cases. Because we don't have that mechanism, we need to have some guardrails. And I think RICO is one of those types of statutes where we just don't have those guardrails. And so how I could best explain it is, in the federal system, we've had racketeering charges for decades.
Yes. Yeah.
You never see trials like YSL in the federal system. The reason,
that's true.
And you know why, is because they have a DOJ manual. So in federal, you have to look at the structure and the discretion. So for the federal system, it's a little political science lesson here for your viewers. So in the federal system, the attorney general dictates policy for every single federal prosecutor across the country. So the U.S. attorney for Atlanta, for example, in the Northern District, they work for the attorney general. So they can't go and say, I want to use RICO this way. They have to follow.
Okay.
No, even though the law, even though the statute says they can, they have a DOJ manual, and they have to follow that DOJ manual. So it's an internal administrative rule that's set by their president, the attorney general, sets it and says, all of you have to follow this. You can't indict 20 people. Like, whatever the rule is, you can't do that. So for the state of Georgia, every single prosecutor in the different counties, they're not ruled by anybody. There's no president. There's no attorney general. So in the state of Georgia, Fani Willis is not accountable to anybody. Nobody can give her a DOJ manual. Nobody can give her administrative rules. She has a law. She can use it however she wants. And where in the federal system, each prosecutor's office can't use it however they want. They have to follow these administrative rules. We don't have the ability to curb what district attorneys and counties do in Georgia. So the only way to do that is change the statute. Put the guardrails in the statute. It's the only way.
Interesting. And I know that there have been a few congressional, at least on the state level, proceedings throughout the year. We've tried to watch some of them, but it's hard balancing the YSL case at the same time. Even I think when you had your open records week that was happening, we were just like, okay, let's switch to the other courtroom.
Oh my God. I'm glad you brought that up. I am not gonna lie. I am so glad people watch that. And it's kind of funny to me because I love open records, and I have always loved open records. Anytime I get asked, do you want to speak at a seminar? What do you want to talk on? I'm like, I want to talk about open records.
Please do.
The the fact that people like that the public was into that, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope educated them about
Yes.
like, if you want to know how your local school is spending money, do the open records. If you want to know what they're saying in their emails, do open records. I think it's such a huge tool for citizens to use. And so I thought if this helps educate people to take some action at their local levels, I love this. This is great. So I was excited.
Yeah, and I want to empower you with that because I actually have a few viewers that acted upon that information. They sent me some of the email rejections that they received from the same people involved. But it was just interesting for them to get involved in some of these policies and see what happens when you're trying to receive something. You know, sometimes you're getting one word responses that are like rejected,
Right.
records do not exist, things of the like. But it does educate people on what really happens beyond your vote, right? And, you know, I think you guys just did fantastic work bringing this stuff up, you know, huge.
No, I think open records are vital because you may support a candidate, but it doesn't mean that you like how they're spending your money, you know?
Yes.
And there's no reason that we can't have that information. You know, it should be easy. It's taxpayer money. It's not your money is what I always say to the, you know, whoever the official is, it's my money. So,
correct.
You know, I don't know why I shouldn't be allowed to see how you're spending my money.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw one of your questions. I don't really aspire to hold public office, but if I did,
I'm sure you get that all the time.
if I did, I mean, I would make sure that there was a website where whatever I spent, you can see, you know?
Right. Transparency, complete transparency, especially with with the YSL case. It's the longest case in Georgia history. So, you know, as a Fulton County former resident myself, right? I moved up to Boston temporarily, but I'm heading back down. Yeah, I'm heading back down to Atlanta. It's too cold here. But it is too cold here. But it's like, you know, I thought about it like, okay, when I was working in corporate America, every single paycheck, money was being removed to the state of Georgia, right? And, you know, I kind of look at it like, I wonder how much it took or how much this case alone costed taxpayers.
Oh, totally. And you know, it did. And, you know, we should be entitled to see where our money's going.
Exactly. So that's a huge one. Love that we spent so much dialogue there because, you know, I have a few people that actually acted on the open records thing. So definitely wanted to give you some encouragement there. Shout out to Danielle because she is one of them. She's the best researcher I have.
That is amazing. And I know how frustrating it is for them because as a lawyer, it's frustrating for me. And you would think I'm using the right terms. And, you know, it's extremely frustrating to ask for stuff that you know you're entitled to, that, you know, shouldn't be hidden. It shouldn't be a big deal. You know, I'm not asking for something that, you know, is difficult and just continue to get these answers or the runaround or almost acting like you're doing something wrong by asking.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. It's all about transparency.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I want my government officials to say, I'm so glad that you actually care enough about what my office does to want to see my budget.
Exactly.
Yes, you can come look at it. Like, I mean, I would, as a civil servant, I feel like I would be thrilled if people wanted to know what was going on in my office. You know, we have such a disinterested voting population.
Yeah, and it is important too, because it shows, like, if you think about it politically, right? Like, we can look at it like it's something negative, but if you think about it, that shows community engagement.
Yes.
You know, you can absolutely spin that to the positive.
Yeah. And I may not be criticizing you. I might be getting records and saying, bravo, you spent them on what you
support. Exactly. Support. And like, that is actually a good thing. I just kind of think about political strategy sometimes, and it's just like these things could actually be positive.
Yeah, no, they definitely can. They definitely can. A lot of the standards are positive. They're good things you know, that we try to get. And yeah, I'm going to continue to fight for transparency. So bravo to your viewers that are doing those.
Yes, 100%. Speaking of viewers, and let's shift to media, right? Okay. This case and the RICO case, the election case at the start of the year, the open records, all of these proceedings have been open to the public, and the media has been in these rooms with cameras. with all of these situations, do you think that media being in these courtrooms has made a difference?
Yes, I think media being in the courtrooms is vital. It is when you can peel back the curtain and people can see how the sausage is made. It is so important. And it goes along with what I think about transparency anyway. If we're not doing something wrong, why do we not want people to see it? Why be proud of what you're doing? Be proud of doing your public service. Everybody in the courtroom who's not a defendant is a public servant. You're either you work for the government or you're doing a public constitutionally mandated service. Why do we not want the world to be able to see that? I mean, our country was founded on freedom of the press, freedom of speech, free, open courtrooms. Now I think it's a blessing to have the technology where we can engage citizens from their bedroom if we want to.
Yeah.
Why, I don't understand why courts don't want that. And I applaud those. Like Fulton County has embraced it. Most of the judges, and I think that is amazing. I mean, it is a wonderful thing to me. It helps lawyers. I can tell you, there's a lot of lawyers that are watching it. It helps them to know what's going on and to understand the system better. So I don't really understand, unless it's like a kid or something really, really super sensitive where you can obviously have, things set up to shield them. I don't know why more courts aren't embracing it.
Yeah, I know. And it really depends on the state. I know up here, while we have a little bit of a break from the YSL case, I'm kind of transitioning over to Karen Reed just because I'm in town and it's here. And so it's kind of like, exactly. So I'm like, hey, might pop into the courtroom, see what's going on, and then kind of continue educating people on different things, right? Especially, we're not fans of corruption over here. So,
well, that case is an interesting look at how the media has influenced a case.
Yes.
I mean, that case really does. And, that's a good example of my sort of motto in it. The police are always going to, when they make the arrest, there's public statements. The police are going to make public statements. The DA are making public statements. When they hold a press conference to announce an indictment, they are publicly saying, I think this guy did it. So I think a lot of lawyers in my position, they say, oh, well, we shouldn't publicize things. The second the DA takes that stand or takes the pulpit in front of the entire world and says, I indicted your client, I think they did it, we have a right and almost a duty to say the other side of it, Yeah. So, unless nobody's making any public comments, including, I think your client did it by indicting him.
Yeah.
Then why are we so scared? And I can tell you after years of hearing it, it's the easiest dig. The easiest dig, I always hear, oh, well, you just want to be famous. No, I actually just like being a lawyer. Like it's, but I hear that dig constantly. And I'm like, no, I just think that if they're going to make a public statement condemning my client, I have a duty to say, no, that is not what happened. There is another side of it.
Right.
And otherwise, there's only one narrative out there. And then that's not fair.
Yeah, there's two sides of the coin, right? And you need to be able to have the balance. And it's not a one-sided ordeal. It needs to be two sides.
Right.
So, kudos to you for, being a strong advocate when it comes to those things, because we have a ton of Ashleigh Merchant fans here. A ton of them.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, they're great. They're great. And speaking of which, I have collected some fan questions for you too, so we can move into those ones. So one of the first ones I had is Fulton County residents wanting change, right? So in your opinion, who holds the authority to remove DA Willis as district attorney? And do you believe such a move is realistic?
I think there is definitely a possibility that could happen. There are two parts to what you're asking. The people who live in Fulton County, how they can effectuate change. She got reelected. So at this point, if you want it on the county level, I'd say pay attention to your Board of County Commissioners meetings. They surprisingly are transparent. They put them online. And so
look at that.
Yeah, so you can watch it. The one thing that people can't watch is what's called closed sessions. And those are where the county attorney is talking about representing people. Arna Willis, for just example, in the open records lawsuits that she's having, the county attorney and the county taxpayers are paying to defend her. She's getting default judgments against her left and right. The taxpayers are going to be paying that. So if I was a Fulton County resident, which I am not anymore, I used to be, I would be very vocal at my Board of County Commissioners meetings or to my county commissioners that represent me specifically about that. because I would not really want my taxpayer dollars paying for Fonnie Willis to ignore open records requests. And that's what's happening. So like our attorney's fees, for example, in the open records lawsuit, that's coming out of taxpayers' dollars. Like I hate that. But I had to spend a lot of time and money to get those open records. And so or if I was a Fulton County taxpayer, I would be very vocal with my Board of County Commissioner and my actual county commissioner, because there's enough of them that you're not just a number, you have a representative. But then whether or not I think she's going to be held accountable, I mean, I hope that there's more transparency in that office. We have not seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of dodging of subpoenas, a lot of name calling.
Subpoenas.
And I think that, if you don't have anything to hide, I think you're willing to turn over records. So the fact that she hasn't turned over records, I don't know what's in them. We can speculate, but I hope that they are brought to light.
Yes, there was a hearing last week because I think the Georgia Senate committee they're trying to get the dodging of the subpoenas to stop.
Yep.
I didn't catch the end of that, but I think the result was that the dodging of the subpoenas needs to stop.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, the judge hasn't ruled yet. So both sides argued it, but that's what it was about. It was about the dodging of the subpoenas for the Georgia State Senate. They have asked for records because they, the Senate, our Senate does most of the purse strings, and they're looking at it to see if there needs to be some tighter purse strings on her office. And they've asked for records. She's just saying no. Won't answer their questions, things like that. So I'm hoping that there's some transparency. They don't have the power to get rid of her. That office just has the power to make laws that could potentially give some more oversight. They also have the power to tighten purse strings if they think money is being misused. So that's their power. There are other agencies that have the power to actually investigate her. I've been told that's underway, but I don't know. But they do have the power to.
Okay. Yeah, no, I do remember seeing something, I think it was in April or May, that the, Congress on the federal level was interested in having her come in and discuss some of these things, some of these matters. And I think that there was a subpoena request as well that was also dodged. Or at least, some calendaring issues, things of the like. I forget the exact rationale behind it, but I do remember keeping up with that as well.
Yeah, and that they're trying to get records as well. And that's because a lot of people don't realize that the federal government actually gives local prosecutors a huge portion of their funding. So
that's right.
Yeah, a huge portion. People don't realize that, but a lot. I mean, the county governments get so much federal funding. And so, she's telling the people who give her money, I'm not going to give you access to things. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I know if my kids asked me for money and they wouldn't tell me what they were spending it on, I probably wouldn't continue to give them money. But
yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I think it was an audit, so to speak, of something that had taken place in the funds that were given before, and there were some allegations of it not being properly spent.
There were a couple. There was money for the Department of Juvenile Justice at the federal level.
Yes.
Gives gang money to sort of, outreach, prevention in the community, and it was not used for what it was supposed to be used for. And then there's another grant called the Saki grant, which is a sexual assault kit initiative. It's a grant to process old rape kits that the county didn't maybe have the money to do. And so there was some issues in that, and they're trying to investigate that. And I mean, it's their money, so I don't really know why you're not willing to turn over records about how you're spending federal money. But
yeah. But so it seems like 2025 is going to be an interesting year when it comes to transparency.
I think it will be.
Yes, 100%. Coming to another viewer question for accountability. What steps can be taken to hold the DA's office accountable for unethical practices, rights violations, things of the like during the YSL trial?
Oh, the one during the YSL trial is really hard because prosecutors have immunity for anything that they do in court. So anything they do in furtherance of, being a lawyer in court, they've got immunity for. There are some actors in a prosecutor's office that don't have that absolute immunity, but judges and DAs pretty much when they're in that courtroom have blanket immunity. So it's going to be real hard to hold them accountable in the civil context. I do think that we'll see jurors holding them accountable. I mean, we saw it already, but people are watching that anytime there is a public trial like that and the world is watching, that always filters down into local jurors.
Yes.
Always, because jurors watch the news and their opinion is informed by that. So anytime you have a prosecutor doing something bad on TV, they're gonna feel it in this county, they're gonna feel it in that county. Every county is gonna feel it. So I think we'll see a lot of trickle down effect with jurors. I do think that the county is scrutinizing her spending more. So I think that is definitely one of the effects. I hope that they're able to control it to a certain extent. Because that's really what this is about, allocation of resources. I used to live in Fulton County and my house kept getting broken into. And
that happened to me, and I was only there for a year.
My car. And so I moved, and it's like, I moved to Cobb County, where if someone continues to break into my house, they're going to go to jail. Right. And, I'm sorry, but I don't really think anybody would disagree that if someone keeps breaking into your house, they should go to jail. Exactly. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, but like that, I think is something we can all agree on. And in Fulton County, you see resources not being allocated for that. And so you see people like you, like me, who get sick of our stuff being stolen. Right. And so we move out, and that's tax base, we're moving out. So I'm hoping that there'll be a reallocation of resources, but we'll see.
Got it. Coming to another viewer question, and just want to make sure we're okay on time. If we go a little bit over, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Coming to another viewer question, would you consider, and I think you answered this, running for local or national office? And if so, what would your top priorities be? I know you get this all the time. Everybody's like, run, Ashleigh, run.
Well, it's funny because I actually get the judge thing. Anytime there's a judge, people are always like, like, no. I am an advocate. And I would have a very hard time turning that off. It's one of those things, I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I would have a hard time sitting on a bench and not being like, let me just ask the questions, or start arguing or something like that. I'm pretty happy with what I do. I mean, I love that people say that I am a public servant. I consider myself a public servant, have always considered myself a public servant. But I don't know that I don't know that my goals would be to hold public office. I'm not saying that I wouldn't, if it was needed for my community, if that makes sense, like if nobody would do a job of local DA or something, and someone really needed to do it, and we really needed a good person, and there wasn't anybody good. Like, I'm not saying I would never consider it, but my goals would always be transparency. And that is, it always has been one of my biggest, transparency and access to justice. You may not like the outcome, but I think you should have access to courts, and I think you should have access to everything that's happening in the court system. I wish that I could do my job and still work in the government sector somehow. I wish there was a way to do both, because I love my job. And so I don't really want to leave it anytime soon.
Right. It's good to hear that passion.
I really like what I do. And I like my lifestyle. I'm able to see my kids. I'm able to have a life that I like. So, I'm not inclined to change that anytime soon, but I do love public service. So
that's awesome.
I'm not sure if that necessarily answered the question, but
yes, I think it answered it pretty well. And it's, what really struck me was just kind of loving your job and loving what you do. I decided not to practice, which a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, why? And I was like, because I started a legal digital media company and I love it. Yeah. This is like, this is the funnest job I've ever had. Yeah. And we're making a difference by, teaching people about the law, teaching people about what happens in courtrooms, advocating for prison reform.
Really? Right? And that is one thing I would be more inclined to help in some aspect in that regard. I would I should just create like a public interest group that just does open records and puts them online for the world to see. Like, I love breaking down the law for lay people, or for people who aren't even necessarily, and it's crazy. Like, when I say lay people, I mean, if you don't practice in a certain area of law, you can be a lawyer and you're still a layperson to that area of law. Right. But I love breaking it down for people and making it more accessible for people. So I love podcasts like yours. Like, I love that because it really, it helps explain it to people so they know what's happening in their system, because knowledge is power.
It is. And even knowing where your resources are, like, sometimes it gives people, tips or like places to go or where you can go to find legal representation properly, things like, legal insurance that comes out of so many corporate paychecks. It's
Right.
like $5 a month, but when you need it,
Yep.
it comes in handy. And I've had people, send me emails like, hey, thanks for recommending that. I just fought a traffic ticket and won.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, like just
hearing
the
people
resources.
records, it's so awesome.
Yeah, it really is. It's great to make a difference in that way, right?
Yeah.
A few more questions from them. We did cover the RICO one, so I'm going to skip that. Defense attorney challenges, and you'd probably know this, right? What do you think is one of the most significant challenges faced by defense attorneys in high-profile cases, like a lot of the cases we talked about today?
Yeah. High profile cases are hard because we're not trained as lawyers in how to handle the media and how, we're not trained in how to handle the media. We're not trained in how to, I don't want to say control it, but just, not let it get out of hand. Make sure that it's following, your case accurately, I guess is a better way to put it. And so that's difficult in high profile cases. It's also hard to manage the media and that I don't think a lot of people realize that, because when we're in court, I can tell you, just like if you take the Roman stuff, I'm in court 8 hours a day and I'm tired, I'm going over stuff at night. And I am one of those people that I don't like to ignore people. And I like to, I like to answer questions. So, I want to be able to do that. And I will say it's really difficult when you're focused in a court hearing, being able to handle both. In a perfect world, if you represent a high profile client, I think having a media consultant that would be great. And it's actually funny, like that, if I was going to do anything, like that would be a really cool job to have.
It really would.
Right? Like it would be really cool. Because it's important, but it's really difficult to do when you're in the thick of things. Yeah. And, you want to make sure that the news is getting accurate information. And I can tell you this whole no comment or not answering, that does not get accurate information out there. It really doesn't. And so to me, it's important to make sure that you're answering appropriately and you're giving, you're making sure that you have enough time to answer the question so that the information is being relayed. Because if you only give a reporter 5 minutes and they can only ask one question, and that's the only aspect that they're reporting on, are they really giving the full picture?
They're not.
No, they're not. And they're going to report. That's the thing. The article is going to be written, whether you comment or not. So I think the challenge is just your time and your focus during the actual, like when things are happening in a high profile case. Yeah. And so, the only benefit really would be to have someone on your team who can sort of be like a media consultant.
That's great.
Yeah.
It really would be a good opportunity too, because I felt so bad. Like sometimes things would happen in this YSL case and people are taking to Twitter and I'm like, guys, they're working.
Right.
Like,
it is hard. And it's, lawyers are not historically really good at managing that. And I will say, we fight for a living. So, if you've been in court for 8 hours fighting, it is sometimes hard to turn that off. And so I hate that sometimes is relayed to people who are just trying to do their job, maybe in the news. I wish we could be better at that, but I think that is probably the hardest thing with a high profile case. And you also need someone who can track the media, who can see, is the message getting out the correct message, or is the wrong message getting out? Or does the news have access to the documents they need? We had during one of the worst things that ever happened during the Roman case was the Fulton County filing system, the e-filing system, shut down when we were in the thick of things. And so it was awful. So these are publicly filed documents. And my position in life, if something is publicly filed, if you need it, I'm going to give it to you. Because if it's on the public docket, you don't need to call my paralegal. We will give it to you. Yeah. It is a public docket. And so but that is something that is important to me. So we had people calling all the time, like, I can't access this document. And I'm like, getting it out and stuff, it's frustrating because normally you can just say, go to the clerk's office, but we couldn't in that situation. Yeah. So that was difficult.
It was, I bet. And I've tried myself at the start of the summer when I was heavily covering the case to just set up a login so I can like pay for the documents. and it was the most cumbersome thing. And, luckily I was able to get in touch with Thugger Daly, who was here this Saturday. He is amazing.
Oh my God, amazing. Because he was able, I would ask him for stuff. Like
Same.
like he can get stuff. And that was really awesome having, somewhere that you could actually access documents and things like that, because, you couldn't rely on the clerk's office.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, but I think that software, it's very dated. It's super dated. So hopefully we get something new soon.
Don't even get me started on e-filing software.
I bet. So on that same vein, we were talking a little bit about some of the challenges for high profile cases. What about for the clients? Is it tough prepping them?
Yeah, knowing it is really tough for clients knowing that the world is going to be scrutinizing their case. And when we talk about cases, it's easy to not view them as people. And YSL is a good example. Like, those people went back to the Fulton County Jail every night, like you saw them in court, but they're getting up at 4 a.m. They're sleeping on a disgusting floor mattress thing. Like, their life is awful. And so we're seeing them in almost this like movie thing, where we're like, oh, they're on TV, they're actors on TV. And no, like, they're living at the Fulton County Jail. So that making sure that everybody knows they're humans is still really important.
That DOJ report, it just revealed so much that was going on.
It's awful. It is awful. And I think it's very unfair that everybody inside the system sort of turns a blind eye to it. And that's probably one of the reasons I wouldn't be a good judge, because if I was a judge in Fulton County and I knew people were being held in that condition, I would let them all out on bond.
I bet.
I'd probably not be reelected.
Yeah, those conditions are just not good. And that system needs reform too. Like, I don't even know where to start on that one.
Yeah, you would need several hours for us to go through that.
Yes, for sure. We talked a little bit about social media, so I'm going to step away from that one. And then I guess one of the last questions we have for you is advice for young lawyers.
That's awesome. I love giving advice to young lawyers. My advice is, if you want to be in court, talk as much as you can. Meaning, like, if someone asks you to give a speech, even if you don't want to give the speech, give the speech. The more you talk in front of people, the less intimidating it becomes talking. And it's weird because your brain sort of gets trained to think on its feet. And to be a trial lawyer, which, this advice is really more for people who actually want to do trial level work. Thinking on your feet and talking on your feet it's something you have to practice. You can't learn. You can't read a book and learn it. So I always say, and I've always done this, you may not want to do the opening argument when you're sitting second chair with a fancy lawyer who you're like, you're way better. You should do the opening.
Right.
Do you want to do the opening? Hell yes is your answer. Do the opening. Rock that opening, even if you are nervous, do it. Because the more you talk, the less you will be nervous about talking. And I tell my kids this, and I don't know that my kids want to be lawyers or not, but I'm always like, if you may not want to do public speaking, but trust me, once you do it and you rip that Band-Aid off, you're never going to be scared to do it, ever.
Yes, 100%. There was on trial team, I always tell them this story. There were some of my classmates that were so nervous. And, they would get they were like shaking in their boots, and it's just like, it's okay, just breathe. But it was, I think, the biggest lesson for those that wanted to go into trial court. In fact, like, one of my co-counsels, we did both sides, and he froze. Now he's a prosecutor, and I'm so proud of him. So there is very much truth in what Ashleigh is mentioning here, guys. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Everybody's going to freeze. Everybody had a crappy opening argument. Everybody has done it, And I don't even think there's any problem telling your audience that, hey, I'm nervous, but I'm up here,
Right.
You're human, you're doing it, and it helps you in everything. Even if you don't want to be a trial lawyer, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to have to talk to people.
Yes.
You're just
100% giving a presentation. And there's so many ways to practice, like Toastmasters. They have all those things where people can go and get some, some training.
talking to kids at a school. Like I will get asked, hey, do you want to go give a drugs are bad speech? Yes, sure. Drugs are bad. Let's go, like whatever it is. You'd be shocked. I mean, people will ask you to talk even at little lunches and stuff. Say yes. Always say yes. You will do fine, and it will be the greatest skill you ever have that nobody can take away. You will learn, you will stop sweating, you will stop getting clammy hands, your stomach will stop gurgling, and it's really the best. I mean, the best thing that I think people can do.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So this is my last question. I am going to do a quick scan for them to see if they have anything just from members or super chats. But I love to do this with everyone. It's my favorite part of every episode. Why a cell trial in one word?
Can I cuss?
Go for it.
Shit show.
Yeah.
Is that one word? I don't even know. But.
No, Doug broke the streak and started using 2 words, and I think Max did too.
I'm wondering if they use the same words.
Yeah. No, it started with Nicole. She was a little bit more modest. She was like, wrong. And but I want to do a compilation of everyone's thoughts, and then probably my own as well, just of what the words are, because from everybody's perspective, all the different clients that were represented, all the parties involved, it's like, wow, exhausting.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
That's another one, right?
Sure. Mismanaged. Like there's so many.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm just going to do a quick scan. Looking at Brian here, he says, big fan of Ashleigh Merchant. How is there no dismissal with prejudice when the judge sends prosecutors to Brady training?
I know. Trust me, Brian. I feel your pain in that. It's story of my life. It's crazy how much people get away with. And I can tell you prosecutors get away with a lot because they are in the most judges' minds doing God's work, and that's sort of how I always tell lawyers, you have to kind of go in thinking that, you're up against God himself, and they're, allowed to make a lot of mistakes and get away with it.
Yes.
It's crazy. It is crazy to me because there should be a punishment. But the reason that judges, to answer your question, the reason that the judges are unwilling to do that is because they don't want to punish the victim for a prosecutor being bad. And so that's one of the reasons, because the theory is if you dismiss it with prejudice, that only punishes the victims. If there are victims, that of course assumes that the crime happened. That assumes there are victims, but that's how judges go into it, and they're like, I'm not willing to let someone go free who maybe did it. And I'm not willing to deny the victims their right to justice because the prosecutor messed up.
Yeah. Because there were over 40 motions for mistrial with this one. It was insane. But great observation, Brian. And thank you for the super chat question. Coming to Donna with a 2. Donna says, should a state be able to charge RICO or only feds?
I would say fiscally, I don't even think the states should have RICO. They love having it. I think it should be sparingly used. There are reasons that the federal government is way better at using RICO than the state government. It's just, how their grand juries operate. It's just a way better system. I know that the prosecutors want it in state court. They want it because they can get a lot of people. But the feds have it, like YSL, just for example, the feds could have prosecuted that. So why do we need to have a state RICO equivalent when they have a federal equivalent?
Excellent point.
Yeah, like the reason that you have federal jurisdiction is because RICO is going, technically across state lines.
Yeah.
So they can prosecute it in federal court. I mean, I don't know that we should necessarily have a state RICO. It's political because states like to say, oh, we're tough on crime. RICO is broad. We're able to get these bad gangbangers. And everybody loves that. Everybody's like, oh, yes, get the gangs. Oh, my God, yes. But then they see it in practice and they're like, oh, maybe it's not so good. So I don't think we're ever going to see state RICO go away because it gets the votes. But it definitely needs to be curtailed.
Yeah, definitely guardrails for sure. Great question, Donna. Thank you so much for that one. Shout out to Spit and Fire with a 10 says, hello, AV and Ashleigh. Can you ask Ashleigh if she met Trump personally, and maybe she can request media in courtrooms, state and federal cases into law? How to get in touch with her office? Yeah,
so, okay. I did not meet Trump personally. And, he never did get to come to court. Maybe if he would, I can't even imagine the nightmare of.
Oh my goodness, the logistics.
Oh my
85. I-85 would be a nightmare.
Imagine like trying, I mean, it's just a nightmare. I don't even get started on that. With the Secret Service and Fulton County government.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I would love to have access to media in courtrooms. We have been working on that in state. We actually have a pretty good rule in Georgia, Rule 22, which I helped get.
Wow, no kidding.
Expansion. Yeah, I worked on the expansion of it a lot because I want access, you know. I wish there was a way for the feds. The feds do not want it. I will tell you how the feds are. They don't even like cameras in the courtroom now.
Yeah.
So we are still having drawings in the courtroom, in the federal system. I don't know that they will ever budge on that. But I will also say the federal court is not quite as much fun to watch. So
it's a little dry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different. You know, it's more, it's definitely what you would consider drier type crimes. You know, I mean, I think it would be awesome, but I don't know that we're going to see the federal system budging on that anytime soon, because they do not want even cameras in their courtrooms.
Got it. And it looks like if people are looking to get in touch with you, because we have a huge following in the Metro Atlanta area as well. So if clients are looking to get in touch with you guys, how can they do that?
Yeah, we have a website. It's merchantlawfirmpc.com, and there's a contact us. I actually get all the contact us. So, you know, I usually forward them to my paralegal, but you get us. But then our phone numbers and all that stuff's on there as well.
Okay.
And on Twitter, you can message me on Twitter or anything like that. I try. I'm 47. I try to keep up with it.
Well, you look fantastic for 47.
I'm not a millennial, but I have a millennial paralegal, and she's way better at that stuff.
Good. Yeah. And guys, if you missed it, I will put Ashleigh's law firm website in the description box. So if you're watching this in the future, you will have a way to get in touch with her office if you're looking to hire her or to get in touch. Just doing a quick scan to see if we have any more. Here's another one. Danielle, the best researcher who actually that did the open records thing. This is who I had in mind when we were talking about that. She says, will John be representing Martinez Arnold in the civil forfeiture case? I notice he doesn't have an attorney listed on the case.
Yeah, we've been helping him on the civil forfeiture case. His case is a little bit different because he was noticed on that before we were actually involved. So there's some pretty strict deadlines on when you can file, and we were actually involved after a lot of those deadlines passed. But I know that Mr. Steele is definitely continuing on Jeffrey Williams' case, and hopefully they'll be able to get the materials back on it. But I have been paying close attention to the civil forfeiture case, and we will definitely be helping Martinez. I mean, they took his car, and his car was I mean, and it was, you know, his car was worth like, God, I want to say like $200,000. I mean, it was a fancy car. I don't know anything about cars, but it was expensive. And it was brand new, and it had been paid for in full, and it was not paid for with any money proceeds from a crime. They just took it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've learned so much chatting with you today. It's like,
I mean, it's crazy. And they took money. He had cash on him. And they took cash, just cash that he had on him. So, I mean, we will definitely help him. I hate civil forfeiture laws. They're just ripe for so much abuse. And if you did some open records, you may have done some for those. How they're spent. It's interesting to see how those funds are spent. Because you can imagine how they could easily be abused when the government gets to keep the stuff that they take. I mean, I have been in prosecutors' offices where they had the TV on the wall that they seized from my client.
Oh my God. How did that happen?
Yeah. Like where they went in their house and they took everything, and they're like, oh yeah, look at that big TV. And I'm like, oh my God, this is disgusting to me.
That is insane. I cannot believe that.
Yep.
I cannot believe that. So what's next for you, Ashleigh? So it sounds like you've got a busy next few weeks getting ready, holidays, right? Celebrating the holidays and getting ready for the start of the year. It looks like we are continuing on with the Court of Appeals for the Roman decision. But what else is happening for you in 2025?
Yeah, January is always a busy month in criminal law. It's one of those things where the judges get all their stats at the end of the year, and they're like, "Oh, I need to move cases. I need to move cases." So everybody gets court notices in January. January is always a month with a lot of calls because a lot of people get court notices. So
Gotcha.
I'm always ready for a busy January, which is nice because December is always kind of more calm.
Yes.
Not as much court because jurors, you don't really want to have jurors. So January is always busy. But just hopefully there's not a ton of RICO indictments coming down the pipe, but we'll see.
There we go. Fingers crossed. Well, Ashleigh, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of extra time as well. I'm going to hang out for a little bit more and answer some of their super chats, celebrate the audience, but I'm just so grateful that we took time to do this. I know that you must be very busy. So to have you here, it's quite the honor, and I just learned so much. I'm sure the audience did too.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you for having me. And,
of course.
Come back.
Yes. So let's stay in touch for sure.
Sounds good. Have a good one. Thanks, everyone.
You too. Bye, Ashleigh. All right, guys, we did it. We did it. This is one of my favorite interviews. It has been so busy in the AV7 production line. I'm so happy we got this done. Me and Ashleigh had been talking about it for quite some time. I knew it was going to be worth the wait because you guys see how knowledgeable she is. I've learned so much chatting with her and all the attorneys, quite frankly. It's so nice of them to actually take time out of their day for them to come and chat with us. Definitely want to thank my numbers. I'm sticking around for a few minutes, guys, so not leaving anywhere or going anywhere. But I want to thank my members too. All of those questions came from you guys. Aside from my YSL case in one word, all of those questions came from y'all. So I want to thank this community for being amazingly awesome as you guys are. When I'm not here, you're like, AV, where are you? Like you guys, you put out an APV. You're like, where is our AV? It was just fantastic. So I'm going to come to a few questions here on Cash Apps and things of the like. Huge shout out to all the people that have supported this stream. It's probably one of the most important streams that I have done all year. So to have you guys here today, it really means a lot. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I am on my way to building this channel, 100K. I got to put the work in to do it. And the fact that you guys are here, it just means so much. It looks like we have several stream sponsors so far. I haven't been able to check out some of y'all's comments, keep up with you guys in the chat specifically because I wanted to give Ashleigh my undivided attention. She has been fantastic. And let's start from the bottom. So shout out to Full Drinking and Half Thinking with the $20. He says, wifey, peace and bliss. Thank you so much, Trin. I still owe you an email. It is flagged, but I wanted to make sure we were ready for this today. And then the editors are waiting for me to respond to a few things too. So know that I am coming to that email. Thank you so much, Trin. Shout out to one of our first stream sponsors. That is Polish Lucy with a $100 Cash App. Lucy, thank you so much. Husband and wife team. I talk about them all the time, guys. Trainwreck Entertainment. Their channel focuses on local trials. And they have a judge that they absolutely love. And they show trial proceedings on a local level every day. Shorter videos, right? But they work very hard and they are on their way to growing their channel as well. Always supporting me, like personally and also just publicly. Lucy, thank you so much. She says, proud of you, champ. Ashleigh, thank you for your time. I will make sure that we pass along that message. So Lucy being one of our first stream sponsors, you guys know what you need to do now. Type Lucy in the chat. Type Trainwreck Entertainment in the chat. Thank you so much, Polish Lucy, for being one of our many stream sponsors for this very important stream. Thank you so much for the $100 Cash App, Lucy. Let's see who else we have in the building. I've seen all of you guys. Like, if sometimes I want to participate in the chat and I felt like I couldn't do that today. But it looks like y'all have been having a lively discussion. So let me see what's going on in our chat. Streams, I can't spell today. Stream sponsors. Polish Lucy being the first. And if any of the mods are hanging around, if you could drop the link to Polish Lucy's channel, Trainwreck Entertainment, that would be fantastic. All right, coming up to the top, shout out to Tyra, who became a member. Welcome, Tyra. You're going to love it here. And announcement for the members. I'm working on our next interview. We're going to do some work on prison reform. So I believe LA Pink is next on our list. I have been in chats with her behind the scenes, so I just need to look at her availability. If you don't know LA Pink, she is a local activist in the Atlanta area. She has been fighting for prison reform at Rice Street forever. She has been fighting for transparency in the DA's office. She has been she worked with Representative Misha Maynor, who had a full-blown stalker that Fannie and team let go. Yes, I'm excited to talk to her. She has been doing countless interviews, trying to scream from the mountaintops that prison reform in Georgia needs to happen. I was supposed to chat with her back in October, but I figured that this week is a great week for us to talk to Miss LA Pink. So members, if you're becoming a member today, or if you've been gifted a membership, I will put up a post tonight just for the members, and that's where you can submit your questions for Miss LA Pink. Also, hoping to do it Friday. I need to call Kat. We are trying to organize a panel of all your favorite creators that cover the YSL trial. Me and Kat Williams are hoping to organize it. So her and I are also working on that. So members, you will be the first to know when and where that is scheduled. Shout out to Miss Crow T. Shetty, who gifted 10 AV memberships. Oh my God, y'all made it rain green in here. Miss Crow T. Shetty gifted 10 memberships. If you received one in the moment, I hope you said thank you. If you're watching this, just popping in and you got the email that says you've been gifted a membership, say thank you to Miss Crow T. Shetty and many others who gifted memberships. Look at Miss Red Bunny Classic, who she adds another 10. Then she added 20. Then she added another 10. Red Bunny Classic gifted 40 memberships. Thank you so much, Red Bunny Classic. You have been hanging around with us for so long, valued member of this community. I can't say enough about her. You know, y'all are helping me build this, and it takes some time, right? You know, I was thinking about it at the start of this year. I started YouTube with like 10,000 subscribers. So when you spend time on your channel and you start to build it, you will see it, you know, start to grow. And a huge part of that is you guys investing in this channel too, and investing in this community, right? So I think that puts you at 120 with Miss Polish Lucy. So if y'all could do me a favor, if you received a membership from Miss Red Bunny Classic, say thank you to her, but let's also celebrate her for being a stream sponsor as well. This is very, very sweet of you. Of course, when people are gifting memberships, they do not have to do it. They're not obligated to do it. They do it because they're great people and they want to see this community grow. You know, so thank you, Miss Red Bunny Classic, for helping us in that effort, for believing in me and this community. It means so much, right? So thank you so much. Guys, look at who we have. I have not seen her in forever. Shout out to Miss Legally Shay. You were dearly missed. She has gifted 50 AV memberships. If you don't know about Legally Shay, not only is she an extremely generous person, one of my #1 supporters on this channel, she's also a lawyer. She's a lawyer up in my neck of the woods here in the north. Valued member of this community. Over these last few weeks, people have been like, where's Legally Shay? We haven't seen her in a while. So it's so good to see you. Everybody's giving you your flowers in the chat. If you guys could spam Legally Shay in the chat, that would be fantastic. 50 memberships is extremely generous. That's the top tier that you can do. So the fact that she goes way out of the frame to support this community, to support me, it means so much. And what did she do after that, guys? She gifted, she dropped $100 super chat. So she says, hi, I miss you guys. It's so good to see you here, Legally Shay. We were worried about you. We hope that your injury has healed. You're doing great, and that you are doing your thing as an advocate. And, if you guys want to check out Legally Shay, I believe she also has a YouTube channel. So if you want to check her out, please, please, please check her out. I believe last time I caught one of her lives or videos, she was breaking down the Diddy case, I believe. So if you are still making content, guys, please check out Legally Shay. It looks like she says that she is back this week. I am so happy to hear that, Legally Shay. It's very, very sweet of you. And she adds on to our stream sponsorship team at $250. Legally Shay, wow. Thank you so much. That is just extremely generous. $250. And that's the thing, guys, like our community, it's just so different because you can go anywhere on YouTube and like we all support each other. We learn about each other. And we want to see each other grow, so super collaborative and supportive here. But thank you so much, Legally Shay. A girl from Texas slides through and gifted 1 membership. So much love for this sister. Once we did the YSL case, guys, at the end of it, we did a panel. I had a few of you guys come up, and have you noticed we have fixed the echo? But it was so good to meet her. She came up, we chatted for a little bit. And a girl from Texas is the sweetest thing. I think she has come to almost every YSL stream I've ever done. She has like perfect attendance in the chatterhood. Thank you so much, a girl from Texas. I appreciate you. Red Bunny Classic is back with the Canadian buck, says Woody, I don't recall. Did you guys love that? I loved Ashleigh's idea of going to local law schools, right? And training them with Woody videos. And here's the thing, Woody has actually gone to law schools and given talks. Like that would be the perfect witness to practice with. Just have them say, I don't recall, and then test these new lawyers to see how they're going to get around that. Because like Woody had at some points he had, Miss Simone Hilton freezing up and in response, delayed responses. They had to figure out how they were going to deal with that. Typically in the law, I think sometimes we call that as a hostile witness. But here's the thing, they knew he was going to go rogue before he even got on the stand. So it's kind of like they needed to prepare for the I don't recalls. That's why you did hear questions like, so are all your responses going to be, I don't recall? Too funny, guys. And speaking of I don't recall, we have a merch store. I don't talk about it enough, but it is the holiday season. If you are if you have any fans of me, right, we do have all of our sayings on shirts. We have the I don't recall shirt. We have the Where's RICO shirt. We have Post-its, water bottles, all of that stuff as a gift to you guys. I'm going to be throwing it on sale. The code is not up yet. I need to sit down and do it. But again, with all of these things on the to-do list, I will make sure that in the community post gets done tonight, in addition to calling Kat and setting up LA Pink. Your girl is busy, but we will get those 4 things done. Promise. Shout out to Brian B with, and we did cover this one, Brian. Thank you. I caught it while Ashleigh was here. It's a great question. I got Donna's question. I got Spit and Fire's question. And Spit and Fire will put what you need in the description box. JC, he passes through with the $2 super chat and says, sup, Ashleigh, from the biggest fan. Hashtag YSL is not a game. She really is fantastic. Shout out to Gail at Night with a 2, says on the road to 100K. Please subscribe. That's right. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. I am on my way to 100,000. I would love to meet that goal sooner rather than later, but I'm so determined to get it done. If you're new to the community, you see we're amazing here. So please drop a subscribe for your girl. Shout out to Penny G with the 2, says Judicial Watch got a judgment versus Fannie. Really, Penny? I'll have to look into that after the stream. Interesting. Thank you so much, Penny, and it's good to see you today. Shout out to Mr. Rev Up, who became a member. Welcome. Gonna love it here. Looking forward to seeing your participation in the members only posts. Danielle, we did get this one. What a great question, Danielle. And I'm just so proud of you. And I wanted to make sure Ashleigh knew that the work that she's doing has made an impact. So great question again, Danielle. D is here with the 5, says Fulton County appears opaque instead of transparent. That's right. Residents should know how their tax dollars are spent. And I think Ashleigh Merchant would agree with you. And I agree with you. We should know how it's spent. I would like to know what the dollar sign with the final price tag on the YSL trial was. That would be remarkable. What do y'all think? What's your guess? How much do you think this trial costed or cost as far as the beginning from picking the jury all the way to the end? And I'm not talking about the defense attorneys because we know those fees are pretty significant. I'm talking about from paying the bailiffs to paying the judge to paying the jurors to paying the prosecutors day in, day out. How much did this case cost? Conservative mama says 100 mil. YT's like, Avi, you pocket watching. Yeah. And Gigi says it's still going on. See Heard says all the money they seized from the YSL people. Mike D says 25 million. Interesting guesses, guys. Interesting guesses. Shout out to Donald says, why isn't Lead doing anything lately? I feel, no, we're just growing. I think he said on his last stream that he was thinking of shutting down for the rest of the year. So I don't know, but stay tuned over there. People got to rest. Thank you so much, D. Shout out to Betty Booty Baby. Betty Booty Baby became a member. Welcome, Betty. Gonna love it over here and looking forward to seeing you on our members only posts. Gwen with the 5, and I believe this is €5. Gwen says the media has trained the public to see criminals rather than defendants. Very true. Innocent until proven guilty has been lost in the level pretrial detention. That's right. And justice should be blind. Shout out to Lady Justice back there on the shelf. Justice should be blind. She wears a blindfold and she's holding the scales of justice. Innocent until proven guilty is definitely a great point. Shout out to Brandy. Brandy Southern Girl became a member. Welcome, welcome, Brandy. You're going to love it here. Looking forward to having you. Shannon dropped $1 super chat. Thank you so much. No comment, no question. Pure love it again. Shannon's back with another 2. Says, how do you and your husband fare working so close together? I wish I got this one earlier, Shannon. But from what I see, it looks like the merchants work very well together. He has represented Ashleigh in a few matters this year as well. They've been married for a really long time. They have beautiful girls together, great kids together. And that must actually probably be helpful if you have a family firm. So if somebody needs to go grab the kids or something like that, the other one's working. So fantastic. Spitting Fire with another 2 says, with these lawyers, you're going to be awesome. Yeah. I think so. I'm really excited for this year. I'm doing some networking up in the Boston area to get ready for the Karen Reed case. So I'll get to know the people on that one too. And we can keep this movement going where instead of just watching it on the screen, we get to talk to the people involved. So it's going to be really cool. Shout out to Audrey with the 5. Audrey says, great interview, AV. Thank you so much, Audrey. It's good to see you today. And that really means a lot, guys, because I'm trying to get better. I take your feedback, although some of it is snarky, but I take your feedback. People are like, hey, it looks like you're not paying attention to your guests. I'm like, all right, guess what? I'm going to print the questions or put it on my iPad so I can stare into your eyes in the camera. But I take feedback, that's the only way you get better at something is to practice and continuously improve. So thank you so much, Audrey. Shout out to Mina with the 2 super sticker. Thank you so much, Mina, with the powerful post. Hope you're doing great, Mina. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, on that note, that is our last super chat of the stream. I really hope that you enjoyed this interview with Ashleigh. Me and the editing team have a few things that we're working on for you guys. We're going to be chopping up all these interviews and putting together a compilation of the attorneys. Ashleigh was the last one. I do have a plug out for one of the bigger ones. We'll see if they bite. No promises yet. I don't like to confirm unless the person says yes. But I've been trying to get at somebody who hasn't done any YouTube interviews. So it's a little bit of a hard one, but we'll see. We've got LA Pink coming. We have our YSL panel, just got to organize with that. But as far as content, you're going to see these in bite-sized pieces. We are working on a shorter Diddy video today. That one needs to get done like ASAP. So we're working on that one. And then our third video is on the Georgia prison systems and the DOJ report. That's been in the can for a while. So as you guys can see, there is a lot happening on the AV production team. Thank y'all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.